Slag is a byproduct of the lead-making process. The Lake Macquarie Council buys the granulated slag from Pasminco. For more than 20 years, it's been used as landfill and in road construction throughout the area.
Well, the council is concerned about the potential for injury to the health of the residents brought about by the long-term use of slag in the past.
The Town Clerk, John Rankin, authorised private occupational health experts to investigate whether the slag is a health risk. Samples from the council's stockpile are being analysed.
I would perceive if anybody was to be risked, it may be young children who may be exposed to uncovered sections of this material in backyards. They might be playing in it.
David Sinclair from Pasminco says the company believes the slag is not dangerous. He says it meets the Environment Protection Authority's criteria for landfill. However, he stressed that the material should be used as fill and not topsoil. The results of the council's study should be known within a fortnight. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The number of empty shops and for lease signs in Newcastle's central business district appear to spell out a sorry tale of a recession biting. But according to the City Centre Committee, don't read too much into the signs because the CBD is enjoying a commercial recovery.
Our most recent survey, or indeed census, of the whole of the city centre indicates that the births are exceeding the deaths, and in fact there was a modest increase of around 1% in the number of shops, which is good news.
While 82 new shops have opened in the city, that's been offset by 77 closing. That means the CBD has gained only 5 new businesses. But Mr Ross says those figures are nothing to be gloomy about.
It's a normal thing to have a turnover. You have a problem when the number of businesses you have is declining. We don't have that problem.
Mr Ross says a key to continuing the CBD's change of fortunes is to open the city to the foreshore. And to do that, the rail line has to be cut at the Civic. Meanwhile, those behind the cash registers give a mixed reaction to the City Centre Committee's bright assessments. Some say business is lousy, others claim things are looking up.
There's plenty of empty shops around the area, as you can see, but we're doing quite well.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Dairy farmer James Hobson admits he's become a bit of a cynic. Almost back to his childhood, he remembers talk of a massive new dam to flood 4,000 hectares of the Williams Valley near Dungog. Over the years, politicians have kept deferring the Tilligra Dam, leaving the farmers in limbo. Just last year, State Environment Minister Tim Moore put the date back to 2035. Yesterday, Mr Moore stated advancements in recycling water would mean a major new dam for Newcastle would probably never occur. But farmers don't want probablys, they want guarantees.
The residents here will finally believe that the dam's not going to be built when the Water Board sells its land and the proclamation over the area is rescinded.
The Hunter Water Corporation has already bought about a third of the land needed. Today, Corporation Chief Paul Broad said he thought the minister's statement was optimistic and he didn't want to raise farmers' expectations. Landholders are still free to dispose of their holdings to anyone they wish, but buyers are hard to come by if a property can soon be underwater. If farmers want out altogether, the Water Corporation offers the Valuer General's assessment of the land. But James Hobson says in many cases the price has not been high enough.
Their policy has improved over the years, but I still think the money they've given for the properties wouldn't be what it'd meet to get on the open market if there was no threat of the dam.
The corporation says it is willing to discuss any independent valuation of the holdings involved. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The forum was the Aboriginal engraving site at Carryong. The teachers, Owen Dennison and Dave Ella, who usually lecture school students about Aboriginal culture. Today, though, their pupils were 60 police officers from Maitland, the Central Coast and Sydney. Owen Dennison approached Woy Woy Police, offering their services.
The more they understand Aboriginal people and the culture, the more they sort of be sympathetic towards Aboriginal people when they are detained in custody.
Owen and his partner explained many aspects of traditional life, from food to customs to tribal punishment with spears. Police also gained an insight into why some Aborigines commit suicide while in police custody.
Because we've got to know the way they feel, the way they think, and we've got to be able to think along the same lines when we're dealing with the Aboriginal communities.
In the last 12 months, the media has exposed evidence of racism in the New South Wales Police Force. Today, Senior Sergeant Paul Hudson from Woy Woy issued a challenge to other police districts to hold similar training days.
We'd like to see them get together, if at all possible, and if it can work, hopefully I believe today's been a success, and if it can be worked in similar police patrols and police districts, well, yeah.
Sowing, harvesting and all that transpires in the life of a wheat crop has been captured in colour by photographer Philip Quirk.
He's got an ability to imbue the landscape with something that we're not quite used to seeing. I think he has an ability to make us see things fresh. And I think that's a real challenge because the wheat country is such a part of our national psyche now, and as much as our landscape. And I think if someone can imbue it with some new way of seeing it, I think that's always very, very exciting.
The Australian Wheat Board commissioned him 2.5 years ago to put together the exhibition. Since then it has toured West and South Australia and Victoria. Moree will be the only place in New South Wales to see the collection. The town was chosen because of the importance of the wheat industry to the region. The exhibit also marks the arrival of the gallery's new director, Scott Brown from Victoria.
The main aim for this gallery from here on will be to take it from a regional viewpoint to a national viewpoint. I think we're very fortunate here to have a very strong Aboriginal community in relation to visual arts, and I think that's something to be nurtured and to be fostered, but also to bring in outside work by Aboriginal artists as well as originating major exhibitions coming out of this gallery and touring them throughout not only New South Wales but also the rest of the country.
The Philip Quirk's exhibit runs until the end of the month.
Father Ron Perrott works with the Australian Catholic Relief Fund and Bob Faulkner is the Regional ATSIC Manager. Both men have had extensive experience in Aboriginal issues and feel it's vital race relations are improved.
It's critical that we improve race relations nationally. It's terribly important for all community to get on with each other. We need to create a better understanding of each other's culture and a better understanding of the whole of the community.
The men have called a meeting on June the 17th in Tamworth, which will be attended by representatives from a broad cross-section of the community.
It's trying to establish communication between, say, people from the Aboriginal community and people from a broad cross-section of the general community.
The pair hopes that out of the talks a pilot scheme for improving race relations will be developed and it can be adopted in communities right across Australia. Father Perrott says their aim is simple.
To create a better community.
For Professor David Farrell, the egg definitely comes before the chicken. He's working on what he calls the hearty variety, an egg containing a fatty acid called omega-3, the same fatty acid found in fish. Studies have found heart disease rates can be reduced by 50% if omega-3 is taken every day.
We really need daily additional amounts of omega-3, particularly if we don't eat much fish.
Professor Farrell made the breakthrough with a simple modification to his chook's diet. The exact contents are a secret, but the eggs that result contain the hearty acid. Tests are underway with 60 people trialling the eggs, and no doubt thousands of poultry farmers and millions of egg eaters are waiting for the final details to be unscrambled.
What we've done really is to improve upon the perfect food, which of course is the egg.
The Ravensworth washery near Musselbrook in the Upper Hunter has had a troubled existence. Constructed in the early 80s to process highly sulphurous coal from the Ravensworth and Swamp Creek mines, the facility suffered long-term teething troubles which cost millions of dollars to rectify. But even though the washery processed 5 million tonnes of coal last year, the decision has been made that it's not economically viable.
There's been a lot of work done on the plant in improving its operations, both in the technical sense and in the operations sense. But the reality of the situation is the coal input quality has improved with the closure of Swamp Creek mine about 18 months ago, and the coal now from the Ravensworth mine operated by Costain is a lot better quality.
As well, upgraded maintenance and operational procedures at the Liddell and Bayswater power stations have improved their ability to handle higher ash coal, further doing away with the need to wash it.
Power stations have improved their maintenance considerably, and now they're able to burn higher ash coals without the consequence of what happened 10 years ago. So all in all, they can burn higher ash coal, and secondly, the coal quality is much improved to what it used to be.
Processing at Ravensworth ceased today, and the 39 staff will be paid off by the 19th of June in accordance with established coal industry standards. Elcom Collieries says there are no spare jobs available in the group's mines, where voluntary redundancy schemes are already in place. Pacific Power says today's move will improve the competitiveness of the Liddell and Bayswater power stations, enhancing employment prospects there and helping to keep the cost of electricity to consumers lower.
The closest the Tigers have come to beating the Knights at Marathon Stadium was last year's 12-all draw, and there has been some super clashes, none better than the Knights' win in 1990 to force a playoff. One of the stars of that match was Ashley Gordon, with 2 brilliant tries to help his side to that historic win. As a health and human movements teacher at Swansea High, the Flash is in his element, testing students' pace over 100 metres, and out Swansea way, he's got plenty of admirers.
Yeah, unreal. He's welcome anytime.
But the past is the past. With 6 tries to his credit so far this season, Gordon is not concerned in keeping pace with his wing partner Adrian Brunker. He just wants a win.
Balmain are a hard side, but I don't mind playing against them. I don't know, I seem to come up with a try or two against them. As long as we win, I don't care who scores, Adrian or myself or Chief, if that.
The Knights are coming off a couple of losses to Canberra and the Broncos, and a win tonight is essential if they are to stay in touch with the top 5 of the Winfield Cup.
We've had a few lapses here and there, and with a 14-0 lead, you think we'd finish off the game. But we've worked on that. It's more of a mental thing than physically, so I think our mind will be on the job tonight.
Well, it's one of those ones that, being at home, we would more or less be expected to win, but it probably, as you say, it probably runs a bit deeper than that, two on the trot. Can't afford to lose 3, like the better sides won't lose 3, and we considering ourselves a better side this year, we have to win this game.
Very important tonight to get 2 points and stay with the leaders and try and continue our way towards the final 5 at the end of the year.
Only 7 craft and their crew turned up for the inaugural New South Wales Tricor-powered hang glider titles. For organisers, anything but a failure.
No, it's been a great success actually. We would have liked more, but the weather put a few people off. The pilots who are here are enjoying themselves a lot, learning lots and competing. The competition is very tight.
And the competition itself is varied.
We flew from Kempsey to Willawarrin, out to South West Rocks and up to Nambucca Heads. Now we're doing bomb drops, spot landings and touch and goes.
The top of the table clash turned into a goal-scoring spree for Highfields. Wilson brought down inside the area and Tony Caban made no mistake. Shortly after, Caban notched his second from exactly the same spot and it was 2-0. Craig Penfold was instrumental in the third for Highfields. His neat cross after taking it from the right was brilliantly headed away by Caban, and Caban had scored his hat-trick. Highfields were relentless in their attack, and after another solid build-up, the ball fell neatly for Gary Wilson and it was all over. At Lowlands Bowling Club today there were special birthday celebrations. It was Centenary Day and old-timers as well as newcomers reminisced about the club in the heart of Newcastle that has been in existence since September the 21st, 1892. State President Ron Martin unveiled a commemorative plaque in honour of the club, and then it was time for another game. The tradition continues.
The Traffic Education Centre is the only one of its kind in the state. Among its facilities, a 2-hectare polished concrete skid pan. The centre is a self-funding community initiative and has been operating for the last 18 months. Today was the first chance to show the public what happens at the centre. One of the major demonstrations, a safe driving tactics display. Current New South Wales rally champion Paul Kennedy took to the centre's gravel circuit to display rallying techniques. The day, officially called Drive Fest 92, also included a motor show with vehicles ranging from motocross bikes to vintage cars, BMX bikes and Harley Davidsons. Tamworth Skydivers also proved popular with the crowds, as did NBN's own Big Dog.
The Kidney Foundation invited about 50 reporters and community leaders to a morning conference on board the South Stane to announce its decision to bring the rally to Newcastle. Apart from NBN, no one turned up.
It is a little disappointing. I feel this is the first large rally that has finished in Newcastle over the years. I've been associated with the Southern Cross Rally and I know how Newcastle used to get behind that.
The rally covers almost 5,000 kilometres from the state's southwest through the outback and into Western Queensland before looping back through Tamworth and down to Newcastle.
It's an enterprising town and I personally, as the director of the event, have gambled on Newcastle getting behind it and supporting the event.
Organisers haven't been put off by today's disastrous start. They hope Newcastle, the North Coast and the North West will enter vehicles to support the event, which normally attracts about 45 entrants.
It'll give would-be rally drivers a chance. We are putting rally sections in, so this year it's a smorgasbord of motorsport. It's the fun at night and the parties, the rallying by day, but also non-pressure driving over some of Australia's best outback roads.
The rally sets out on August 21 and ends in Newcastle a week later. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The task force established by the university and the government are both working on the recommended split between the Armidale and Northern Rivers campuses. The task force is mainly concerned with what will happen to the Coffs Harbour and Orange campuses when de-amalgamation occurs. The The government has also set up a committee which will recommend to Education Minister Virginia Chadwick whether the split should occur, and if so, how.
They have agreed to meet with the task force on the 18th of June. The advisory group has yet to establish its own procedures. I would imagine at that first meeting they would be advising the Vice-Chancellor and the task force of the types of discussions they'd want to have, and perhaps setting out a timetable for their inquiries.
The university hopes the advisory board will report to the minister in 6 months, a time frame, Professor Field says, that cannot be sped up.
I think the minister has made the right decision in appointing the advisory group. She needs that sort of information to her. I don't see that it can move any more quickly.
In the meantime, the university's task force will hold a series of meetings with staff and students at the institution's various campuses to help them determine what the future will hold for Coffs Harbour and Orange.
The game between the competition front-runners was fiercely contested with a total of 13 tries being scored. At half-time, Inverell were down 14-12, but fought back to level the scores at 32-all near full-time. The Boomerangs were awarded a penalty, but they decided on a tap kick and not a shot at goal, a decision that probably cost them the game. With the full-time siren about to sound, an Inverell intercept resulted in a try. In other games, Moree down YCW, Uralla defeated Tenterfield and Glen Innes got up over Gyra. In Group 4, Weewar moved into the number 1 spot on the points table after defeating West Tamworth and Werris Creek down Tamworth City, while at Narrabri the home team defeated Wooden Spooners Gunnedah 22-16. The victory for the Blues has put them into equal second position with West Tamworth. But the win wasn't without incident. Narrabri hooker Matthew Smith damaged a hamstring when he went in to score in the second half.
Grave concerns were held for the toddler who'd wandered away from an outdoor market near the old Oak Roadhouse at about 3 yesterday afternoon. His father, a stallholder, along with others, searched until late afternoon before calling in help. Within hours, more than 200 police, volunteers, emergency services and military personnel were scouring the area.
We've got to look low. Things like fallen logs, bushes where a child might crawl underneath, or looking for shelter.
While friends comforted Simon's mother Leslie, human chains swept kilometres of bush, calling the boy's name.
It's going to be cold out there now. It's getting real cold at this stage.
Searchers returned wet, cold and empty-handed. Recharged, they set out again. Simon's father searched all night in vain. This morning he was overwhelmed by the awful uncertainties of what might have become of his son.
He's been brought up not to talk to strangers, so I just hope he is out there and he does answer someone.
Just what is your wife going through, Kat? It's a difficult... By first light, a police command post was coordinating search teams that had come from the Upper Hunter, the Central Coast and Sydney. Search perimeters were extended with horses, helicopters and vehicles. Police divers began the grim task of dragging ponds. The now 20-hour search wore on. Then a breakthrough. The sense of relief was immense as word filtered back that searchers had found the boy safe. He'd travelled kilometres from where he went missing yesterday. Members of the Awabba Bushfire Brigade had located Simon trapped in a barbed wire fence, snagged by the seat of his tracksuit pants.
As soon as his legs started kicking, I thought, oh, beauty, he's alive.
Not too worse for wear and wrapped in a space blanket, the youngster was returned to his parents and family. All involved breathed a unanimous sigh of relief. In the John Hunter Hospital this afternoon, Simon shared part of his experience. Alone in the dark, he'd watched the distant flickering torches and helicopter searchlights.
I came in there in the sink.
all gone around.
The helicopter with a big light.
They're all gone around.
Well, I just want to say thanks to everybody that came out there. Yeah, people heard it on the news first, sort of thing, and they travelled for miles just to come down to help look for him.
Simon contented himself with a feed and a soft pillow. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
It's the day Newcastle's government bus drivers have been dreading. In this morning's Sydney newspapers, advertisements appeared calling for expressions of interest to operate bus routes in Newcastle. The Department of Transport intends to carve up the routes to and from the city into 3 areas. The first is Merewether and Belmont, the second Cardiff and Warners Bay, and the third Mayfield and Wallsend. The ad points out that the successful tenderers will be required to maintain all services, fares and concessions that are currently provided by the State Transit Authority in Newcastle. The Drivers' Union believes no contractor could fill that requirement without government subsidies. While the Hunters private bus companies say there's still plenty of questions to be answered by the government, they're already showing interest in what's on offer.
I believe there'll be a number of Hunter operators will put in for it, not only those who are fringing on the Newcastle operation, but from throughout the Hunter Valley.
While the private sector considers tendering for Newcastle buses, the Drivers' Union has been in Sydney this afternoon, making a last-ditch effort to keep the service in public hands. The union has presented to State Transit a proposal to cut $2.2 million off operating costs. Transport Minister Bruce Baird claims Newcastle Buses has an annual loss of almost $6 million. Meanwhile, State Transit is investigating apparent acts of sabotage on buses at the Hamilton depot, which may be tied to the looming privatisation. According to State Transit, over the past month and a half, paper has been shoved into the diesel tanks of at least one bus a week, rendering them inoperable.
Well, it would appear to be from a disgruntled employee, but I wouldn't like to single any particular group out. I just think if it is, then it is only just one employee.
A woeful first-half performance by the home side had the large crowd wondering whether the wheels had fallen off totally after narrow losses to Brisbane and Canberra. The Knights didn't use the howling gale to their advantage at all, most kicks giving Balmain possession from the 22, except for one brief classic moment. With Glanville restricted, the Knights' defence opened up out wide and Davis joined with Sinclair for a pair of tries. But most of the post-match criticism was levelled at the Knights' lack of flair in attack, branded a one-move outfit, and everyone seems to know the move.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, from that move, we've certainly got different options to take. Probably we tried a little bit too hard, using that move, probably to try and get across the line and win the game. I mean, if you look at Balmain, all they did was just throw it out and have a run around. So, you can't really criticise us too much for that, I don't think.
After the great start to the year, the Knights are now under real pressure. The stats looking very much like they did this time last year, with this weekend's clash against Parramatta taking on monumental proportions.
Last year, Parramatta were, I think, were sort of in the same position, and not too many were tipping them to beat us, and they end up coming out and flogging us 30-0. So, we'll take that into account. They were a bit stiff against the Gold Coast. That score really didn't indicate how well they played.
The Derwin family were only out of the house for about 20 minutes. When they returned, the front yard resembled a disaster area. A truck carrying a small bobcat earth mover had rolled about 200 metres from where it was parked 15 minutes earlier on a hillside. Neighbours heard the runaway vehicle as it leapt a gutter, slammed through a tree and ploughed into the brick wall.
I just thought it was some idiot going too fast down the hill. But then I realised that it had gone through the front of the house.
Although obviously stunned, homeowners Jeff and Lynn Derwin were thankful no one was hurt. Jeff had been working in the garage under his four-wheel drive just minutes before the crash.
Going to get some spare parts and we come back and sheer horror.
A police rescue crew and tow truck operators salvaged the wreck. Although the building was insured, it's not known at this stage if it suffered any serious structural damage. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
There was a time when they played football. Paul Vorton, the Manly and Eastern Suburbs lock, and Steve Roach, the Tiger stalwart. These days they're more at home with microphone in hand. Today at West Leagues Club, patrons paid $35 to hear anecdotes from two colourful careers. Example number one, Blocker and Sam Bacco on tour in New Zealand, trying to pronounce Maori place names. Example number two, the time Kerry Packer rang Darryl Eastlake to find out how his horse Easter had fared on the track. Now, if you think that's funny, the pair are speaking tonight at Raymond Terrace Bowling Club. All money raised will buy sporting equipment for St Bridget's School at Raymond Terrace.
The Newcastle seismograph, located at the Regional Museum, was inspected immediately but showed no evidence of anything unusual. But because of the number of reports coming in, the Assistant Curator decided further checking was needed.
We then rang the Bureau of Mineral Resources in Canberra at the Seismological Centre there, and they confirmed that their seismographs at Sydney had not picked anything up at all either.
The phenomenon was described as a rumbling like thunder, which caused windows to rattle and furniture to shake for about 2 seconds. But there was no reports of any damage. The Bureau of Mineral Resources says if it was a quake, it was certainly a very minor one.
They then speculated that it was more than likely to have been an air shock, which means a sonic boom or a blast like a quarry blast, very shallow mining blast. The sonic booms are more than likely to have been caused by an aircraft passing through the speed of sound.
But there's no evidence that that actually happened?
Not to our knowledge, no. So it's a mystery.